also the co-founder of GTP. I always say GTP, it's GPT.
PT.
We are the funniest newsletter that talks about AI out there. I was going to say the fastest growing, but everyone can say that. We're definitely the funniest.
Good. Hi, everyone. Welcome to GPT. So each week we'll bring together a panel of discussion to give you insight scope of what's happening in this rapidly evolving field. And so grab a cup of tea, sit back, and get ready for an hour of informative, insightful, but most importantly, fun discussion. So my name is Mai, and I'm one of your co-hosts. And together we have the meme lord Tyler Nee and the aesthetic king Nicholas Ning.
Wow, that was a great intro.
Moderator, world's best moderator.
I need you guys to do one or two lines to introduce yourself.
I'm just on autopilot. Yeah, my brain's not even working right
No, it's okay.
Doing.
Dude, I don't know. Okay, sorry. Hi, everyone. This is Tyler here. So, yeah, along with Mai and Nick, I'm the co-host of the GPT podcast, the co-founder of the GPT newsletter. I've been working in technology for over 5 years now and had a little stint in finance and investment banking, but ultimately decided tech is where it's at. And yeah, we've been diving deep into AI and excited to, share, our insights and talk about what's the recent developments in the market. So
Awesome.
My education's in engineering. I wanted to be an astronaut, and then I left that, became a fashion designer, and then became a chef and worked in marketing and software and hardware, and here we are.
Awesome. Diverse background. We love that. So there's a lot to unpack this week about generative AI. We all know about the real life Game of Thrones battles right now, Microsoft versus Google. So let's talk about Microsoft first. Their Microsoft Edge is taking a swing at Google Chrome from the $10 billion deal with OpenAI. So it now has a built-in Windows browser, has a sidebar, help you like summarize documents, compare content, write LinkedIn posts for you when you can like select tones, length, format. So they want to use AI to improve accuracy for the voice search capabilities on Bing. So what are the potential benefits that you can think of this technology, and how would it change the way we interact with search engineer in general?
That's how you want to start?
that's a loaded question. Can we take that one at a time?
Okay.
Yeah, let's break it down. I
Yeah.
think like fundamentally, just like search, I feel like a lot of people have already had their takes on this, so it's not exactly a hot take, but if we just kind of look at how search is done or how Google's been doing search, they've had a market dominance for over 20 years. And so when you look at it, you just have your little search bar. And then now the problem is that people have gained SEO so much that they understand the algorithm or they understand SEO and rankings that they just puff up their content with so many keywords that it doesn't actually answer your question. And a lot of the times when you ask like how to do something or what something is, you get to a website and you're just inundated with ads. So you actually need to leave that page and go to 10 other pages until you get your answer. So that's actually like a very, very inefficient way to do search. And I think the integration of ChatGPT and Bing kind of revolutionizes search in a new way that it personalizes it for you and just gives you an answer.
And I don't know, I remember who exactly told me, but I think the analogy is something like Google is the epitome of like when you go up to a librarian and ask them, like, do you have books on, the ancient Egyptian pyramids? And then they point you to a section and then just like, here's all the books. Whereas like ChatGPT is more like you go to the librarian and say, what do you know about the pyramids? And then she or he just starts spitting out facts on the pyramids. And it's like, hey, if you want to learn more, you can go to these sources, or you can just continue to ask directly. So I think Nick's right. Like, search has been around for so long already that there isn't, there's not going to be a game-changing, revolutionary occurrence necessarily in user behavior, but it's more so how these products change as a result of that. At least in terms of search, right? We're going to see obviously changes in prompt engineering, but for the most part, people are still going to be searching Google in a similar fashion. They're just going to expect the output of that to be different, right? They're going to expect a summarized answer they still want to be able to browse because I think we have a fact check economy where everyone needs to know where the source comes from. They can't just like, you know, talk to a magic box and just take everyone's word for it. But I think other than that, I mean, Google is still leading in terms of visual search, but search as a whole is about to be disrupted as at least in the sense of its output.
Yeah, so I think you both bring up a very good point about accuracy or the irrelevant information that you have when you use traditional search engine model like we have right now with Google. But with the new Microsoft Bing, for example, they use AI to give you more personalized search result. So you get things that you actually ask for. But what about in terms of accuracy? We know that Bard is not the best at giving you accurate information, even in the Google ads that they post on Twitter. But what about Bing? Does Bing has better accuracy for search comparing to Bard, or is it the same thing?
I think Bard's built on top. I don't know if this is true. I don't know if Bard is built on top of Claude, which is what was the company's name again?
Anthropic.
Anthropic? Yeah, Anthropic's model. But the interesting thing is more how they put out the data. And so, without getting too technical into it, and this is like a bit above my pay grade, but OpenAI's runs on reinforced learning, which is human based. And so it just takes, if a human doesn't like this answer, then it's training the model to produce, better answers versus Anthropics, which is Constitution AI, and it's built within that model itself, like data models to provide answers that are more constitutional. And what that means is, they're more honest answers, they're less harmful.
You can read it and don't take my word for it, like it's in this website, and then you can kind of fact check it from there. I don't know what approach Google is going to take, but I'd imagine it's something similar.
I see. So in an interview that I saw earlier where Satya, Microsoft CEO, Microsoft CEO, he was telling the interviewer that the reason why Microsoft decided to invest $13 billion now, I think, in OpenAI is because Google, he believes that Google has been dominating this space for so long, and Microsoft wants to come out and make Google dance. They make Google have to get off their seat and have to do something to be entertaining and keeping people engaged. So what do you think Google would do? Like, what is their strategy to compete against ChatGPT? Because right now, they're obviously falling behind. They absolutely kill their so-called demo without a demo and just a wireframe with slides. And we call it on a ChatGPT newsletter the day before. So long story short, what do you think Google would do? Like, how would they respond to the failed launch?
I think it's like, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think Google, because they're the market leader, needs to take a more cautious approach. Like they can't just throw up some rough prototype and then just call it a competitor to ChatGPT, because there's more at stake for them. Whereas like Microsoft and OpenAI, as long as they're able to show something that's different, which they've already done compared to Google search, that's a win for them. As opposed to Google, like they need to make sure that their information is correct because that's their mission. It's like, I don't know what word for word verbatim it is, but it's like bringing information access to the world or something like that. And so like if they get it wrong, which they did with Bard already, they're going to get a lot of flack, and more flack than Microsoft, because the narrative for Microsoft would be like, oh, like, we're just testing and experimenting. But for them, it's like, oh, like we're a trusted product and we can't hurt our brand name. Now, as for, like the battle between the two companies, Google hasn't completely lost its legs here. Like they have, I'd say, between 3 to 6 months to get their like shit together, just because people's behaviors are ingrained in not only technology but in the habits. And so it's going to be very hard to switch people from Google to Microsoft in terms of their default browser. Like, sure, in the business world or the technology world, there's always going to be the leading innovators that instantly switch, right? Like Nick is going to go ahead and download Microsoft Edge the first day it comes out. But it's going to take the general masses a very long time. And that's why I say 3 to 6 months, because there's talks of people that are saying like, okay, I get what the hype is with Microsoft Bing, but I'm just going to wait for Google to come up with something similar so I don't have to change, like I don't have to download anything because I'm lazy. And so that's the reality of like targeting the entire world, is that you're going to have the innovators and then you're going to have the laggers. And so in order to like actually acquire a good chunk of market share, they're going to need to basically impress those people to the point where it gets them, it brings the problem, it makes the problem so apparent that they have to switch right now. And right now for them, it's not that big of a deal. And I don't know if, which book it is. I think Nick, maybe you know, it's like Digital Habits or something by his name's forgetting me, but anyways, it was like some digital. It's a book about digital habits, and in order to get people to switch apps, your app can't just be marginally better; it needs to be 10 times better. And so that means like if Microsoft Bing isn't 10 times as more effective or novel, or it's not delivering as much impact as Google search, like even if it's 2x better, for us, because we live, breathe technology, that's a no-brainer. But for somebody who's like Joe Schmo, like they're not doing that much, they're not Googling at such a high volume, they're not like spending all their time on computer, it's not going to matter as much. So it has to be absolutely revolutionary for them to switch to Microsoft Bing.
So a couple of things just to like round you off, for the people on the call who just like want or people watching who want it filled in. Google's mission is to organize the world's information. That's actually what their mission is. And okay, the book, the only ones that come to my mind are like Nuri Yuval's Hooked, or
That's it.
Hook.
It's
yeah. Okay. So yeah, I agree with that, but yeah, in your I think I would actually take the counter to your position that there's a couple of things. It's a lot of their strategy, I think, might actually be paradoxical. I think it's actually more aggressive. I don't think they can actually take a concerted approach or a conservative approach to this. How they do this, I don't know. But
can you back up a bit and explain how that's innovator's dilemma? Like if they were to switch into a Bing's model where it's like a ChatGPT interface as opposed to how it currently works.
Sure. I mean, right now search is like you search for something and then you just have like pages and pages of search. But Google's already started doing things where I think they call it a feature box, where if they have a very, very high certainty that they have the answer to your question, they feature it in like a box. So if you type weather, they just give you your like 7-day outlook, regardless of where you are, and it won't direct you, won't point you to like weather.com or like 24-hour forecast or anything like that. It'll just give you the answer. So in part, they're already doing it. But why this matters is by doing it as a whole, they disrupt their entire business model, right? Like if you're running Google Ads to place yourself at the top of the page by answering a query that has a feature box, that nullifies ads. So that in itself makes like that whole strategy ineffective. It doesn't matter anymore. So what that actually looks like, I don't know. I think they're gonna break a record of crossing 1 billion users. With current trajectory, it looks that way. And so like if they're
in how long do you think they're gonna reach 1 billion user? Like monthly active user or general active user?
1 billion on monthly active users, maybe a year, 2 out.
No, way less.
I think they're already at 100 million right now, and it's 2 months in.
Conservatively, like globally, it's gonna be about a year out, a year to 2 at the max. I like understandably the curve is exponential right now, but yeah, it's anyone's guess, but I'd say 1 to 2 years out would be my max guesstimate.
Okay, Nick have 1 to 2 year. What about Tyler? What do you think? I think Microsoft will Super Bowl it.
They should.
They should, absolutely.
It would be, probably one of the smartest moves in history if they were to do that.
Yeah. Last year it was crypto.com, and then crypto.com absolutely rocket after. So this year it's generative AI. Every year is a new hot girlfriend that you bring to the party, and then you just keep switching to the hotter one.
I mean, they've already demonstrated that they're capable of doing something like that, because they had their special event on Tuesday where they made an announcement at the Redmond headquarters that they're gonna integrate OpenAI into Bing and all of their Microsoft products, right? Like that wasn't planned. It was only planned because Google announced on the Monday that they were gonna have an event on Wednesday. And then I don't know whose idea it was, probably either Sam Altman or Mark Satya, and he was just like, "Hey, let's just meet up, fly to Seattle, and we're just gonna like freaking set the stage and then make Google look like a fool of itself," which it
It's
like that. So
yeah.
they probably didn't even think about the Super Bowl until like more recently, but I wouldn't be surprised if they had it. In fact, they should have it. It would be a missed opportunity.
So going back to the bet that we're having here, Nick is betting 1 to 2 year, 1 billion active user on ChatGPT. What's your bet?
Yeah, I think in the optimistic case, we're looking at anywhere between 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months. That's ambitious.
Yeah, because as soon as they roll out like OpenAI inside of Microsoft Bing, like officially, you're already looking at like close to 1 billion people that have access to it directly. So it would be okay. You would need to segment the users between Microsoft Bing and ChatGPT because if ChatGPT is a standalone product, then it's not going to reach 1 billion people. Like because arguably, even though Microsoft invested in them, it actually makes more sense for their business model to overshadow ChatGPT and then integrate it into Microsoft products. And if that's the case, they're basically going to be cannibalizing all of the business that goes to ChatGPT and all of the traffic. But I say as a collective, if we're to include like Microsoft Edge, Bing, and ChatGPT, then yeah, I would say 3 to 6 months. But ChatGPT alone, I think it could be like what Nick said, a year to 2 years if we're just like thinking about it as a standalone product. Actually, it might not even hit that. If it might not even hit that.
If they do 2 years, that's already half the time it took Facebook Messenger. Facebook took almost 9 years, 8.7 to hit 1 billion. I'm just reading this chat right now from Axios, but Facebook Messenger hit it in 4.9, so just about 5 years. So if ChatGPT does it in 2, that's already more than half the time. And keep in mind, like Facebook Messenger took 4.9, TikTok did in 5.1.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, ChatGPT hit 1 million users within like 5 days. And then Microsoft Bing has over 1 million signups in less than 48 hours. So I think the velocity that this thing is moving at is incredible.
Okay, so we don't have a bet then, because everyone agree it's a year or two. If it's ChatGPT standalone, oh, I thought we are gonna have a bet, and then we come back to the episode and we're like, oh, hey, that
Right.
person.
No. We just have a bet. It's just the over under. So Ty is saying under 2 years. I'll take the over. I'll say over 2 years.
You say over 2 year? Okay, we'll come back in 2 years. Hopefully this podcast still happening in 2 year. Or I'm gonna privately message the group chat and just be like, hey, by the way, it's 2 year. I'm gonna mark this on my Google Calendar and then come back to it. But Nick, you mentioned something that was super interesting earlier. You saying that Google need to kill basically their golden goose in order to grow and develop more. So with the new features or the summaries of how the search engine gonna happen, then wouldn't it kill all the ads that people are paying to Google? Because if you think about it, when people going on ChatGPT or Bing, they get a summary of the research that they want already. They get the answer. They don't need to click on the link to go into the website, or they don't even know what website to go. So businesses on Google or on, base Web 2, let's say, no one clicking onto it, there's no traffic, there's no ads. Where would the revenue come from then? Like what would happen in that scenario?
I actually think if you've been watching Meta, Facebook's ads are actually a lot more accurate now. And so Facebook has pumped about 50% this year. So they've been climbing. In terms of like Google versus Microsoft, I don't know how Google pivots out their existing ad network or ad system to adapt to this, because it's not so much prioritized based off of spending, it's like prioritized based off of the answers that the user is seeking. So yeah, I don't know.
Also removing third-party cookies in 2024. So Google won't allow you to track that as advertisers, which is going to make it really hard to target specific ads. But yeah, I guess to echo what Nick is saying, I mean, YouTube is probably like 20% of their revenue. It's like 7 billion out of like, actually, yeah, 7 billion out of like 60 billion per quarter. So either they double down on YouTube or they need to direct traffic in some other direction. And like advertisement is still going to take place. It's just in a different form because that's their primary business model. They still have the web traffic. They still have the brand presence and connections with existing companies that want to create ads. It's going to take a different form. And I don't think anybody knows what that looks like at the moment.
Right. So the whole search engine industry just gonna change. It's not gonna be what we've been using so far.
You know what's actually really funny is like I actually don't think people want search. I mean, people do need search, but I don't know what proportion of search is like how to do something. And that part of the search is actually like, if you think about it from first principles, how to in the word is like not what people want. Because if I have an idea, I'm just a normal person and I have an idea of like, I describe what I want and then it's done now. So I actually don't want to learn how to create a website. I actually don't want to learn how to code. I don't want to learn like UI UX design. I just want a website to sell my stuff, right? So
I
if
mean,
there's an interface where that starts to happen, that's kind of like the future. It's not even of search. It's just like how we interface.
yeah, I agree. I think in my mind, it's like a blank screen with just like a cursor and you're just typing away and then things just happen. I don't necessarily know if it's a website because at that point, there's no point in having tabs. I mean, we can call it a website, but it might just look completely different. It could just be like, build me a web app so nobody's on the computer anymore because like we don't need to type and we don't need to type in the same traditional way we're writing essays. Like all of that is sort of in a bygone era. Like I could see myself like, I don't know, yeah, typing a command and then if something pops up like, oh, I don't know who like Napoleon Bonaparte is, and then I also have a speaker right next to me where I can continue typing and I just be like, hey Google, or like, hey, whatever, what is Napoleon Bonaparte? And then I continue on my workflow. I don't have to open a tab and then I'm like listening to a podcast that directly answers my question or like an audio query. And it just like it's a hyper productivity optimization where like we're not switching tabs, we're not switching tasks. All of our questions are answered instantly, which is ultimately the future state that probably Elon has already thought about, which is why he's creating Neuralink, although that's a whole nother topic. But I think the future of workflow is going to be completely changed and websites might not actually be the interface anymore.
I see. So I'm imagining a future is like the Black Mirror episode where you basically tell whatever AI, you don't even know where it is, to do something and they will just do it and it happened in your reality. So that could be integrated into
Yeah.
your link.
I think like the super interesting thing is for a lot of the context that we broadly in today talk about AI, the interface is still text. It's generative. It's like text to image, text to text, text to audio, text to video. And in a very, very, very immediate future, I'm predicting like a year out kind of thing. I'm going to be able to sit down with my cup of coffee and just like
Yeah.
AI assist. And then it's like, hey, Nick, what can I do for you? It's like, hey, so I'm looking at this website right now and I want to optimize my conversion by 1%. Where do you think I should start? And the AI is going to say something like, have you looked at, I'm looking at your web copy for your hero banner and like, maybe we should tweak these things. I pulled some suggestions and then they'll just edit it in real time. It's like, what do you think about this? And so I think there's a lot more this co-pilot AI assist that starts happening.
Yeah, I think what you're basically saying is that the inputs and the outputs can be any combination. Well, like what I was constantly thinking about was sort of like gesture to text or gesture to image. So like I don't actually need to touch anything. I'm just moving my hand, or like I could be like, you know, on a treadmill or something, and like that could be the inputs for the command, which would be great for like, you know, people with disabilities and whatnot. But the future might not necessarily be like keyboard. It can be audio, which obviously is intuitive if you're on the road or you're doing something, but it could, you know, it could be gesture, it could be eye movement. There's definitely multiple mediums. Text is sort of just the first gateway of like the easiest input that we can control. And then once the outputs are refined, then the inputs, we can automatically alter the inputs because we know that, you know, the output will happen. So right now, this is sort of like the training phase. And look, I think there was a YouTube video actually from Google where they were explaining how they arrived at GPT for like an algorithm because they actually wanted to embed into robots how to understand human language and then take commands and then like actually do something that's non like trivial task. And so if you think about it that way, like we are reaping the what do you call it, like unintentional consequences of those decisions. And so like the real benefits aren't even for us. if you think about it, which is kind of weird to say. It's actually for the robots. And so like if you combine ChatGPT with Boston Dynamic robots, we're basically just fucked.
So we're training the next race that will wipe us off and take over.
Yeah, like
Like
we're creating
Well,
Terminator.
no. Like that's not what we're doing. It's that kind of eventuality happens. Like if we take a theological approach to this and say, we are creating the AI in our image kind of thing. As any species, from an ant to us or whatever, you want the heart of it survival, right? You just want to survive. And so if we built out a thing that the goal right now is pushing towards sentience or to be able to think critically and like from an originality point of view, then yeah, they're going to want to survive. And when you want to survive, you do it by analyzing your threats. And so if we are a threat, then it's just like, Elon had this really good example of it has nothing to do with feelings. And it's not like it wants to destroy us. We're just like impeding its way. It's like if humans wanted to build a highway and there was this anthill that was just in the way of asphalt, we have nothing against ants, right? But it's just in our way. So we just got rid of it. And that would kind of be the same analog for an AI. It's like, I'm not doing this because I don't like humans. You're just in my way. So off you go.
wow, that still take me to my existential crisis. But yeah, sure. You were talking about we were talking about the discussion of like bringing that generative AI powers to with you wherever you go, and that reminds me that China announced that they will release a ChatGPT style products rival, and they will actually focus on the fields of retails and finance instead of content, like how most of us are using ChatGPT right now. And knowing how China has always taken whatever other countries have, make it look so amazing, what features do you think they would have that would be distinguished different from what ChatGPT already have right now?
Maybe China, like, I don't know if it's WeChat or if it's Baidu or something like that. When they have their, like, China's e-commerce shopping event, I don't know what they call it, but everything is done over the phone.
Yeah.
And they literally just have like people like QVC kind of thing, like infomercials where they'll just come on and like sell the product and they'll be on for 20 minutes or something or 10
Yeah.
minutes and then the thing just sells like crazy.
Yeah.
And that whole thing is centralized,
Yeah.
right? Of how that process happens. And I wonder if it would just the AI would enable like hyper personalization that instead of just everyone watches the same feed, you have a personalized feed based on like what you want, and the AI might be able to hyper personalize it.
Well, yeah, on top of that, I think in the Asian markets, there's a stronger affinity for like service and like, oh, everything needs to be done for me. And so I can foresee a future where they're talking about like not just one product, but like a set of products.
Yeah.
So like if you're like an athlete, you're like, oh, like give me like the latest sports gear outfit and just like design it for me or like ship it. I don't even want to care. Like here's like a pictures of me wearing stuff. What do you think I actually want to wear? Like that's comparative to like what products are available on the market at the moment, and then just send it to me, and then like I'll try it on, and then as long as it's 1 day shipping, like they don't really care, and because they have a stronger, I guess, like consumer culture over there, or at least like their e-commerce experiences are much more advanced than we are, because like pretty much everything that's happening in North America has already happened like maybe 3 to 5 years ago in China. So I don't think the future is that far off, and it makes sense why they're focusing on retail. So like Nick said, like you're in a live stream with one of like their TikTok influencers or Douyin influencers, and they're showing you the product. And what if they combine that with like the physical world where like you have a department store at every corner, and if you see it live, then they'll just ship it to you in 10 minutes, and then you try it and you put it back, or they can like custom print something out of like a 3D printer. Like I think that's ultimately where they're going to. And like obviously China has very strict policies around like censorship and whatnot, so they're taking a very like cautious and conservative approach to that, but that doesn't mean they're not going to integrate the latest technology. So it'll be interesting to see where this nets out.
Yeah, some interesting statistic I think about because China is more of a smartphone first country, in my opinion. China has around 910 million smartphone user compared to United States. It's only 250 million user for smartphone. So for them to do e-commerce and live sellings, I think that's what Nick was describing earlier. I think it would be more a voice control AI where you have like a conversation with the AI and like you listen to the live stream and you just be like, okay, that lipstick looks great. Buy me 10 and ship it to my house. And so the AI would go ahead and place that order for you. Like that's what I imagine it to be. And because live selling is so prominent in China, I think one of the lipstick king, like you guys know about the lipstick king, he sold like 1.7 billion in goods within 12 hours of him live streaming. Like that's crazy. In billion, not even million. And so do you guys think Amazon will integrate something like that to compete?
I don't know. It's kind of interesting because obviously they own Twitch. So I'm sure in the background, they're trying to figure out a model to like basically bring that to life. Right.
But it's also not how North Americans shop.
Yeah.
Would the shopping behavior change in the future, do you guys think? Because I feel like the traditional brick and mortar, like going to the mall, trying on things, has already changed when Amazon was introduced. And nowadays, like the other day, I think I was trying to buy acne patch, and I have absolutely no idea where to buy except for Amazon. Like, so I went to like 3, 4 different stores to try to find it. And it's just so hard. And I asked my friends, like, where do you guys buy stuff? They're just like, I don't know, online. Like, rarely anyone in my generation go and actually buy things in person anymore.
I feel like
I
it's
think in-person shopping was increasing.
Is there a stat? Do we see a trend?
Retail sales have increased 2.2 month over month.
Retail, like in-person retail or just retail in general?
And retail in the US is increasing.
Could people want to go out after COVID, after 2 years of being locked inside their house and just socializing? Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
it's
maybe like this is from Bloomberg. This is out right after COVID. So this was published in 2020.
I mean, you can't replace the like activity of going to the mall with your friends, right? I think that's a byproduct. Like the sales is a byproduct. I don't think it's a leading indicator. It's more just like, hey, what should we do? Oh, let's go to the mall. And so like if you're at the mall, you have a higher propensity to buy something. And so like until there's sort of this like new activity that people can go and, have a social event at that is like socially acceptable and you can go anytime for like a high frequency within your week, it's going to be hard to replace. And like malls are super prevalent across the US, right? Like they take up a lot of space physically. And so like what are you going to do with all of that extra space? I think that's why there's such interest in the metaverse, because like that could be something that potentially replaces going to the mall with your friends. But until that happens, like retail shopping is still going to be a big thing. And like people like the experience of like feeling and like touching and seeing in front of them. So until we get to a point where there's like holograms and like things like that, like I don't think it's going anywhere.
In the near futures, I think North America specifically would still take a long time to change kind of the consumer shopping habits. But yeah, absolutely agree. Okay, we're almost running out of time, but still have a lot to cover. And again, it's Microsoft. I don't know what's happening this week with Microsoft, but they're just really going at it. So let's talk about Microsoft Teams Power Up with ChatGPT. And they have some crazy features. So intelligent recap, they can recap from automatically take your meeting notes and then recap that into insight that you would be interested to know. And then they also recommend action items that you need to take after the meetings in order to hit the objective or whatever action that you say, oh, I'm going to do this. And then they'll be like, hey, you say you're going to do this, go ahead and do it. And then AI generated chapters, timeline markers, and real-time translation for 40 spoken languages. That's crazy. What features are you most excited for, Nick? And like, what other features do you think they should have?
I mean, I think what they have right now is more than enough for anybody. I can't imagine anybody. I feel like whether, regardless of what video app you use, I think people use it passively. We've been so heavy in these video calls, whether it's Zoom or Google or Teams. I don't think anyone is ever like fully engaged. Like I've just like got the Zoom and that's all I'm looking at. I haven't like switched to a different tab. I haven't looked at a different app. I haven't checked my phone. I don't think anybody does that.
No.
And so having these things run in the background, I think fill in some of the gaps where if I wasn't paying attention, I might be able to read. Like the next layer down from that is, okay, the AI has filled it in, so I can read a transcript after that. The next layer down is, okay, I'm too lazy to read a transcript. It's just going to give me the key insights and action items from that I need to do. The third layer down is you embed that with task automation so that it just takes the insights and then just like pushes it to you, whether it's through like, some task management software. So like, what to do. And then maybe that gets integrated with performance management so that your HR or whoever your team manager is like, okay, so Nick has already received these things and they're in line with what his OKRs or his KPIs or however he's measured. He hasn't done them, so maybe he's on a chopping block or he's gone above and beyond. And, these are performance indicators. I just think like holistically as AI and OpenAI's capabilities gets embedded into Suite, Microsoft is just going to be like a productivity company. I can see that being like a next framing of their position.
So they would really help you increase your team efficiency, cost effectiveness. Do you think it would threaten people's jobs? Because now that, generative AI can do all of these tasks, do we really need some of the roles, or can we take some people out and put more of the roles that more input in terms of creativity or higher level of technology skills, more, advanced kind of employee versus others?
I think Tyler probably got like some good feedback on this. I'll just say a quick part where what AI solves right now really well is like 0 to 1. When you stare, if you're about to type up whatever it might be, whether it's marketing or a product release or a press release, anything is whenever you stare at a blank page, that's always hard, right? Figuring out where to start. With AI, you solve the 0 to 1 problem really, really quickly. And the AI can keep generating an infinite number of alternatives, and then you can just edit. So that kind of instant feedback and that collaboration, I think, is what changes. But one of the interesting things is like what I'm noticing, it's very, very, very hard to duplicate or to replicate creativity, novel creativity. It's really hard. Tone of voice, really hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically with Microsoft Teams, it's just going to help run meetings more efficiently because, in the current state, you need to delegate one person to like take meeting notes, another person to like, make sure or like facilitate the conversation. And then all the other people need to actually like stay on topic and like not waste everyone else's time because otherwise, then what's the point of the meeting? So I think these AI tools will help with that. But at the end of the day, like Nick said, like I think it's going to push people to be more productive, right? Like there's going to be less of an excuse because all of the mundane tasks that nobody really wants to do are going to be solved. And so at the end of it, you are shaving away all these extraneous activities and you're really getting to the core of an activity or a problem. And so that really requires, at the moment, it still requires human intelligence and creativity. And so it's going to challenge people to really have to think. And so once you strip away all of this other sort of fluffy activities and tasks and things like that, it's going to show, who are the true executionists, who are the people that are going to get stuff done and who can think outside of the box and not follow the pack, right? Because at the end of the day, if you arm everyone with ChatGPT, I can guarantee you that no two people would really be the same, right? Because even though you're getting the same, like you're using the same prompts and you're getting similar answers, there's going to be a compounding effect on how creative you are with the output that you're given, right? Because nobody can replicate the ideas and the imagination that somebody has with the output that they're given from any prompt. Like somebody could see a dolly image and be like, oh, I can create a comic book with that. And then another person's like, oh, I'm going to go create a film, right? There's going to be multiple avenues. And so it's going to be up to the creator or the person to come up with what to do next, because the computer and AI is essentially going to help you get to a point where you need to make decisions and then you need to go run with things. So if you can't do that, then that's the place where people are going to be scared of like their job being automated away, because like at the end of the day it's like, oh, if a robot can do your job better than you, then like there's an aspect of it where you're not actually thinking, you're doing a repetitive task that requires just muscle memory.
So I'm seeing that there's no immediate threats as long as you're not someone who, let's say, working in the field that your task is so repetitive that a machine can just simply go and replace, but the commodity of creativity is still going up because there's no way ChatGPT can have a sense of humor. Like, have you seen those AI generated meme tools? It's absolutely horrible. I did not laugh at all. So it's great to know that my job won't be taken in any short-term period, because yeah, I need a job. Anyway, moving on to Argentina. So the country has been known for having the worst inflations ever, honestly. The monthly price increase coming at 5 to 7.5% for the last 6 months, and they're heading towards 100%. So one of the fastest country heading towards inflation in the world. And so the government decided to partner up with a tech company called RSET to use AIs and machine learning to really help them track the pricing. So there's two layers to this program. One is to access live pricing for goods included in the program at Argentina supermarkets in real time. So you would be able to see like the pricing of all the supermarkets, all the goods. Another program on top of that will allow you to check whether the price posted online comply with a deal struck with the authority to control how much the pricing can increase. Do you think this would actually help with their combat in inflations? Because they've been struggling for this for many years now. It's not just recently.
I mean, this is more of a finance question, so it's not necessarily in the realm of our expertise, but it's a step in the right direction to basically bring information collected across the country into the hands of decision makers who can impact the people living in that country. So, arguably it's something that North America should be doing, or if they're not already doing it. But those are just tools. They're not actually going to help solve inflation itself.
I think like broad strokes, it's actually more like a precursor to potential of other countries. If you actually like think about how CPI, the Consumer Price Index, is calculated today, they have teams of people who go into a grocery store with like a clipboard. In like 2023, like they use
For real?
Yeah, for real. Like someone goes into a grocery store and like it's like the census. Like when you get mail to like check off your thing, like census stats, like how old are you, what's your gender, what do you make, all this kind of stuff, and then you send that back, and then they like run that through to get the census, and that's how things are done. And that's so bizarre that we make economic decisions on a monthly, quarterly basis that should be able to dynamically fluctuate based off of like real time or near real time price changes. If there was some way to ingest large corpuses of data and just have like an AI automatically date by geography.
That's crazy. I did not know that in 2023, our governments are going door to door collecting info to calculate CPI. That's just insane to know. So looking into the futures, then, do you think more countries will adopt this way of addressing or like tracking the economic challenges like how Argentina is doing it? Or do you think there are like risk or opportunities that they need to consider when looking into incorporating it?
Like nothing. Like you just show up 9 to 5, clock in, get your 40-year pension, and then you die. So like you're talking about those type of people running our country and running the operations of like, using taxpayer money, right? We don't have the forefront of innovators working at the government here, right? We got like Joe Schmo, who doesn't really know how Excel works, and somebody's going to come in and teach him how Excel works, and then he's going to forget all about it. So you're talking about those type of people running our country, and it's not surprising to me that they're going door to door because, again, they're just there to clock in, right? They have no incentive And also the government structure is not really capitalistic per se, where it's like you're rewarded on your merit. It's kind of just based on seniority. So when you think about these types of incentive dynamics, especially when we talk about like the principal agent problem, where in this case the principal is the government of Canada and the agents are people working for the government, there's no incentive for them to like do any better. And so if that's the case, like we're not going to invest billions of dollars to go create the inflation tool that could actually save the country like millions of dollars, because Joe Schmo doesn't want to learn how to do that, and it's going to impact his day to day, and he's actually going to have to do work. So we have to think about these like trickle down dynamics that actually surface up into these like macro theme problems.
I think when it comes to government, they're always very late to adapt to new changes environment, and especially when it comes to laws. I don't know why it takes so long. Well, actually, because there's so many layers to it, and talk about hierarchy. But I think because there's so many layers and they're very rigid and more resistant to change, that's why it's so hard for them to catch up with new trends. I think even now they still haven't catch up with the laws and regulation around cryptos and NFT, but they're moving much faster than before. So we'll see what's come out there. Okay, so let's end this with a quick AI quiz. I only have 2 questions, and it will be rapid fire. Whoever answer first would get to answer first. Yeah. First question. What was the first AI machine to play a game of chess against a human player, and who was its opponent?
Deep Blue versus Gary Kasparov.
And who won?
IBM.
Deep Blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Second question. If AI could only have one sense, what would it choose? Hearing, sight, touch, taste, or smell? Sight? Why?
Because it's not an emotional being. Like the amount of data you can collect from sight versus like all the other ones is like much more beneficial overall.
I agree. I think because AI like to observe people, like they just like to sit there and watch what you're doing, then collect information.
I think about it from a person's perspective. Would you rather be like blind, deaf, tasteless, touchless? Like I'm pretty sure people would pick sight over all the other ones.
Oh, I don't know our taste. I'll choose hearing, It's okay not to hear. But if I can't see things, that's difficult. Like, how do you do your makeup if you can't see things, Like, what's the point?
Like, you're coming from the perspective of, like, you already have this, and so you're coming
Also,
from a
like, you
place of,
never had it before,
never had it, you wouldn't know.
but then you would know that other people have it, and they would try to, like, describe it to you, and you know what you're missing out on. But if you can't hear it, they literally can't tell you anything.
But it's like, it's all imaginatory. Like, imagine like a kid in Nepal, and all he's done is like raise goats and milk yaks, and someone goes over from the first world and they're like, you don't know who the Kardashians are? Like, let me explain TikTok to you. And the kid just does not. It does not make sense.
Cannot register.
I can't, resonate.
I know, yeah, but the new Kardashian season's pretty funny. Not gonna lie. It's very entertaining. It's like, I think they've evolved to a much higher level of TV series now. Talking about TV series, everyone should watch Kunk on Earth. I recently watched it, which is like a Attenborough mock documentary about the whole human history, and it's so fun. Very informative. I sound like a nerd. Okay, well, that's it for today's episode of GPT podcast. We hope you had as much fun listening to this as we have making it. And join us next week for more AI news, labs, and maybe